In a quiet residential neighborhood on the outskirts of Albany, New York, Emily Harrison was experiencing the most important morning of her life. She worked as a romance novel editor at a small publishing house and had been waiting for this day for 3 years. The soft September morning sunlight streaming through the large windows of the hotel bridal suite beautifully illuminated her white wedding dress. "Emily, take a deep breath. You look absolutely beautiful, beautiful," her best friend Rachel said, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. Rachel had been with her since early morning as her maid of honor, trying to ease Emily's nerves. "You've waited 3 years for this, so today is going to be perfect. Just imagine the look on Michael's face when he sees you." Emily smiled in front of the mirror. Indeed, it had been nearly 3 years since she met Michael Bennett. He worked as a project manager at a major IT company, tall with kind brown eyes, but he was Emily's ideal man. More than anything, she was drawn to his sincerity and warm personality. Emily's family situation was complicated. Her mother, Nancy, ran a small flower shop. She was a strong woman who had raised Emily on her own. Her father had moved to another state after divorcing her mother, and they had lost contact ever since. For Emily, her father's absence had been a long-standing source of pain. Even for today's wedding, she planned to have her mother escort her down the aisle. Michael's family, on the other hand, was warm and had welcomed Emily wholeheartedly. His father, Robert, was a retired banker, quiet but thoughtful. His mother, Carol, was a former elementary school teacher, conservative but loving, treating Emily like her own daughter. Michael had a sister named Sarah, who was also an elementary school teacher. Sarah had a bright personality and quickly became close to Emily. Emily and Michael's meeting had been at a company party 3 years ago. Emily's publishing company and Michael's IT firm were collaborating on a digital publishing project, and a party was held for all the stakeholders. That evening, Emily approached Michael, who was standing alone. He smiled somewhat shyly, and they started talking about work, then moved on to discuss books and movies. Michael was sincere and kind, the ideal man Emily had envisioned for years. He never put on airs and always put others first. As they continued dating, Emily realized she could be completely natural around him. In their second year together, Michael surprised Emily with a proposal on her birthday. Kneeling in the restaurant, he said, "Being with you makes me feel like I can become the best version of myself. I want to make you happy for the rest of your life." As he offered her the ring, Emily couldn't stop crying. Nancy wholeheartedly blessed their engagement, saying, "He's such a wonderful man, almost too good for you," rejoicing in her daughter's happiness as if it were her own. For a mother who had raised her daughter alone for so many years, if you bought her alone for so many years, Emily finding a good man was the greatest relief possible. The wedding was to be held at the historic St. Patrick's Church in the suburbs. The beautiful stone church had over 100 years of history, where many couples had pledged their eternal love. About 100 guests from both families were invited, including many colleagues from Michael's workplace. Emily wore a white mermaid dress and the pearl earrings she had inherited from her mother. As Rachel adjusted her veil, she said, "Everything's perfect now. All that's left is to head to the church." Emily looked at herself in the mirror one last time and whispered in her heart, "A new life begins today." The happiness she had longed for was finally within reach. At exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the majestic sound of the pipe organ resonated throughout St. Patrick's Church. The melody of Bach's "You Joy of Man's Desiring" echoed off the stone walls, enveloping the entire sanctuary in a sacred atmosphere. 100 guests stood, and all eyes turned to the church entrance. Emily gently placed her hand on her mother's arm and took a deep breath. The train of her white mermaid dress spread beautifully across the floor, and the lace veil she had inherited from her grandmother flowed gracefully behind her. Emily's heart was pounding as she began walking down the aisle. Relatives and friends sitting on both sides watched with warm smiles. Michael's company colleagues were lined up on the right side. Emily walked while checking each of their faces, one by one. As she approached the altar, Michael's figure became clearly visible. He was dressed in a black tuxedo with a white boutonniere on his chest. However, unlike the happy expression Emily had expected, Michael's face was unusually tense. A thin layer of sweat was visible on his forehead, and his usual calm expression was nowhere to be seen. James, the best man standing next to him, was also looking at Michael with concern. He seems really nervous. Emily whispered to her mother with a small smile. But that's what makes him cute. Nancy nodded gently at her daughter's words. It was natural for many men to be nervous at their wedding. Emily sent Michael a loving smile to help ease his nerves. When they arrived at the altar, Nancy placed Emily's hand in Michael's. Emily felt that Michael's hand was cold and trembling slightly. She gently squeezed his hand back and whispered, "It's okay." However, Michael didn't respond. He just looked at Emily with a pained expression. Father Francis, the officiant, began the ceremony with a gentle voice. "Dear friends, thank you for gathering here today for the wedding of Michael Bennett and Emily Harrison. Marriage is a sacred vow made before God, the beautiful ceremony where two souls become one." As the priest continued speaking, Emily noticed that Michael's condition was becoming even stranger. His breathing was shallow and rapid, and he seemed to occasionally glance toward the back of the venue. Emily tried to turn around too, but she had to focus on the priest's words. "Now let us proceed to the vows." The priest turned to Michael. "Michael Bennett, do you take Emily Harrison to be your wife? To love and cherish her in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, until death do you part?" The venue fell silent. Emily looked at Michael with an expectant expression. However, Michael tried to open his mouth, but no voice came out. Several seconds passed, and murmurs began to rise in the venue. The priest gently prompted Michael. Still Michael remained silent, just continuing to stare at Emily. Anxiety spread through Emily's heart. "Michael, are you okay?" she asked in a small voice. Michael showed a pained expression, and she could see the sweat on his forehead increasing. But he didn't answer anything. The murmurs in the venue grew louder, and the guests were leaning forward with worried expressions. Best man James approached with concern. "Hey, Michael, why'd you thank you for joining me? What's wrong?" He placed his hand on his friend's shoulder. Surprisingly, Michael answered James in a small voice. "I'm fine." At this moment, Emily was shocked. Michael could speak, but he wouldn't speak to her. "You won't speak to me?" Emily was confused. "Why? What's happening?" Her voice was trembling. Michael looked at her with an expression full of anguish but still said nothing. As if bound by something, he kept his mouth firmly shut. As the atmosphere in the venue grew heavy, Father Francis showed quick thinking. "Then let us simplify the vows. Michael, do you vow to love Emily and cherish her for life? Please answer yes or no." Michael slowly nodded. He didn't speak, but it was clearly a gesture meaning yes. The priest showed a relieved expression and asked Emily the same question. Emily, though confused, answered clearly, "Yes, I do." The ring exchange ceremony was also conducted in a strange atmosphere. Michael silently placed the ring on Emily's finger with trembling hands. His movements were careful but lacked the gentle kindness that was typically his. As Emily similarly placed the ring on his finger, she was screaming in her heart, "Please say something. Anything." Finally, the priest's words, "The groom may kiss the bride," rang out. Michael approached Emily and gently kissed her lips. At that moment, Emily saw tears welling up in his eyes. They weren't tears of joy but tears filled with deep sadness and pain. Applause arose from the venue, but it was clearly different from the usual congratulatory applause at weddings. The guests had confused and worried expressions, and several were whispering to each other in small voices. "Is everything okay? What happened?" Emily looked at her newly placed wedding ring while feeling anxiety and questions swirling in her chest. This wasn't the wedding she had dreamed of. She couldn't understand at all why the man she loved wouldn't speak to her. Michael could speak normally with other people, so why did he maintain silence only with her? Emily felt complex emotions taking over as she placed her hand on the groom's arm. What should have been a moment of happiness was shrouded in great mystery and anxiety. The reception venue was in the ballroom on the top floor of the five-star Hotel Grand Albany downtown. Chandeliers sparkled delicately, and 12 tables beautifully decorated with white and pink roses were arranged. Large windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and the twilight sky bathed the venue in golden light. However, for Emily, This beautiful space had become a place filled with mystery and anxiety. A woman had been busy with preparations in this venue since morning. Anna Coleman was hired as a temporary waitress at the hotel. But she actually had a special purpose for being there. Until a year ago, she had worked as a systems engineer at the same IT company as Michael. The reason this talented engineer had to leave the company was due to persistent harassment from a certain woman. That woman's name was Jessica Morris. This morning, when Anna was doing final preparation checks in the break room, she happened to witness a terrifying scene. The door to the groom's preparation room was slightly open, and she stopped when she heard the conversation coming from inside. She could hear Michael's voice. And then a familiar cold female voice echoed. "Listen carefully, Michael. If you say even one word to Emily today, I'll send these photos to everyone." Jessica Morris's voice was cold as ice. Her parents, relatives, friends, company colleagues. "I'll let everyone know what kind of man you are, a man who was having an affair." Anna gasped, peeking through the crack in the door. She could see Jessica in a red dress threatening Michael with a smartphone in her hand. Michael pleaded with an expression full of anguish. "Please stop this. Emily has nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with it." Jessica continued with a mocking voice. "You abandoned me and chose her. Today is my day of revenge. I'm going to ruin the most important day of her life. If you say even one word, these photos will be spread forever." Michael sat down holding his head. "Please, Jessica. I apologize for what happened in the past, but don't involve Emily." However, Jessica wouldn't listen. "It's too late. I've already decided today. You won't say a single word to the bride. If you do that, the photos will be safe." Anna made up her mind a year ago when she was forced to leave the company due to Jessica's harassment. No one helped her, but this time was different. She might be able to help innocent Emily and Michael. She decided to stay at the venue as a waitress that day and wait for an opportunity. When the reception began, Emily and Michael took their seats at the head table. Emily was smiling beautifully, but Anna could see the deep confusion hidden behind that smile. Michael remained silent as usual, occasionally looking around the venue to check on Jessica's whereabouts. "Michael?" Emily gently took her husband's hand. "What's wrong? Why won't you talk to me?" Her voice was small, considerate not to let others hear. But it was loud enough for Anna to hear. Michael gripped Emily's hand back with a pained expression but remained silent. Emily's confusion deepened. When she saw Michael talking normally with colleagues at the next table, she was shocked. "He won't talk only to me. Are you hiding something?" she whispered in a small voice, desperately holding back ears. Michael's parents, Robert and Carol, were also watching their son's abnormal behavior with concern. Carol approached Emily and comforted her. "Are you okay? Michael is a very nervous child." Emily's mother, Nancy, also encouraged her daughter. "I'm sure he's just nervous. Men sometimes can't find words at times like this." However, Emily knew better. This wasn't just nervousness. Michael was intentionally refusing to speak only to her. She couldn't understand the reason at all. And her anxiety grew larger with time. After mealtime passed, it was time for speeches. Best man James stood up and began. "I've been friends with Michael since college." Emily carefully observed how Michael would react to his friend's speech. Michael occasionally smiled and nodded slightly at James. However, when Emily tried to talk to him, he became stone-like again. At that moment, Michael stood up. "I'm going to the restroom," he said audibly to others, but said nothing to Emily. Emily was deeply hurt. Her husband could communicate normally with other people, but only she was excluded. The moment Michael left the venue, a waitress quietly approached Emily's table. Her name tag read Anna. She checked her surroundings and then offered Emily a small folded note. Ma'am," Anna whispered quietly. "Please read this." Emily was surprised and asked, "What is this?" Anna answered with a nervous expression. "Please read it right now, but don't show it to anyone else. It's very important." Emily received the note with trembling hands. The surrounding guests were chatting happily, and no one noticed their exchange. Anna added in a small voice, "Please be brave." Before moving to other tables, Emily felt her heart beating like a drum as she carefully opened the note. There, in neat handwriting, was incredible content. "He is being blackmailed. Jessica Morris from his workplace is in the venue. She threatened if you say even one word to Emily, I'll show evidence photos of the affair to everyone. He is staying silent to protect you. Jessica is wearing a red dress and sitting at Michael's company table. I worked at the same company until a year ago. I witnessed the blackmail scene this morning. Emily gasped and turned pale. The words on the note became blurry, and her hands began shaking violently. The word affair echoed repeatedly in her head. Michael had been having an affair, and it was being used as blackmail material. She looked around the venue. When she searched for Michael's workplace table, there was indeed a beautiful woman in a red dress. She was staring at Emily with sharp eyes. That woman, Jessica Morris, smiled wickedly when she made eye contact with Emily. The note almost slipped from Emily's hands. She quickly gripped it tightly and tried to take a deep breath. However, her agitation wouldn't subside. Her beloved husband was being blackmailed. He couldn't say a word at their wedding to protect her, and the cause was his past affair. In contrast to the venue's glamorous atmosphere, Emily's heart was wrapped in storm-like confusion. What should have been the pinnacle of happiness suddenly turned into the terrifying reality of betrayal and blackmail. Rachel asked with concern, Emily, you look pale. Are you okay? But Emily couldn't answer. She could only feel Jessica's cold gaze while waiting for Michael's return. Emily gripped the note tightly and repeated deep breaths. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears, and the venue's lively laughter and music sounded distant. She quietly stood up and passed Michael in the hallway as he returned from the restroom. Michael looked at her with concern but still said nothing. Seeing that expression full of anguish, Emily became convinced that the note's contents were true. Who is Jessica Morris? Emily asked in her heart as she returned to the venue. Her best friend Rachel approached with concern. Emily, are you okay? You look very pale. I'm going to get some fresh air outside, Emily answered with a trembling voice. I'm feeling a bit sick. Rachel tried to stand up, but Emily stopped her with her hand. I'm fine. I'll be right back. Emily hid the note in her bag while steeling her resolve. She had to know the truth. She began walking toward Jessica's table. The woman in the red dress was indeed beautiful, exuding an air of confidence. When Emily approached, Jessica displayed a calculated smile. Jessica, Michael's colleague, Emily called out, trying to appear as calm as possible. Jessica turned around gracefully and smiled wickedly. Yes, that's right, Emily. What a lovely wedding. Congratulations. Really? Her voice carried a faint trace of mockery. Emily got straight to the point. Are you the one blackmailing Michael? She kept her voice low so the surrounding guest wouldn't hear. Jessica's expression changed momentarily, but she quickly returned to her original smile. What are you talking about? I don't understand. You have affair photos, don't you? You're using them to threaten him and force him not to talk to me. Jessica looked around, confirmed that other guests weren't paying attention, then answered in a small voice. You want to talk about such things here? Emily didn't back down anywhere is fine. Tell me the truth. Jessica stood up and elegantly brushed her hair back. Let's go to the terrace. This seems like a private conversation. The two headed to the hotel terrace. The twilight sky was dyed purple, and the city lights were gradually beginning to shine. However, even this beautiful scenery looked faded to Emily. Once on the terrace, Jessica revealed her true nature. Her elegant smile disappeared, replaced by a cruel expression. Yes, we had a relationship until a year ago, she said in a challenging tone. But he chose you. He abandoned me and chose you. Emily secretly activated her smartphone's recording app. She had to preserve this conversation as evidence. So you decided to ruin the wedding? Jessica sneered. It's his punishment for betraying me. I loved him, but you appeared and took everything away. So I'm going to make the most important day of your life unforgettable. You threatened to spread the photos, Emily asked, suppressing her anger. Jessica showed a triumphant expression. Yes, very effective. If he says even one word to you, I'm ready to send them to everyone's smartphone simultaneously. Your parents, relatives, friends, workplace colleagues, everyone will see, along with the happy newlywed photos. Emily continued recording while trying to maintain her composure. Do you know that's blackmail? Jessica's expression changed momentarily. Do you have proof? However, She quickly regained her confidence. I haven't done anything. I'm just attending the wedding as an old friend. At that moment, the terrace door opened, and Anna appeared. She approached the two with a determined expression. I'll be a witness too. Anna said in a strong voice. I witnessed her blackmailing Michael this morning. Jessica's face turned pale. Who are you? Anna Coleman. I worked at the same company as you until a year ago. Anna answered with a resolute attitude. I was forced to resign due to your harassment. But I can't stay silent today. Emily stopped recording and put her smartphone in her bag. That's enough, she said calmly. I recorded everything. Let's call the police. Jessica panicked. Wait. This is a misunderstanding. I haven't done anything. But it was too late. Anna had already contacted hotel security. This morning I heard Jessica threaten Michael in the preparation room, saying if you say even one word to Emily, I'll send the photos to everyone. Anna explained in detail. She was using their past relationship to try to ruin the wedding. A few minutes later, hotel security arrived, and police were also called. Jessica resisted, but with Emily's recording and Anna's testimony, the evidence of blackmail was clear. I was just in love, Jessica shouted just before being taken away. He betrayed me. However, no one listened to her excuses. Love never justifies blackmail or harassment. After Jessica was removed from the venue, Emily hurried to Michael. He was sitting alone at the head table, worriedly waiting for her. When Emily approached, Michael stood up. It's okay now, Emily said gently. You can talk. Tears overflowed from Michael's eyes. Emily, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. He could finally speak. I didn't want to hurt you. But in the end, I hurt you even worse. The two embraced, and warm applause arose from the venue. The guests didn't know the details of what had happened, but they understood that the two had finally reconciled and blessed them from their hearts. Rachel applauded with tears flowing, and Michael's parents showed relieved expressions. Nancy proudly watched the two, who had overcome this difficulty, proud of her daughter's strength. Anna smiled quietly from a corner table. She was satisfied that she had been able to act, to save innocent people, not for revenge for what she had suffered a year ago. The next day Michael told her everything honestly. A year ago, when stress had reached its limit, due to a major project failure, he had temporarily become involved with Jessica. However, he quickly realized his mistake and ended the relationship himself. On the morning of the wedding, Jessica came to the preparation room and threatened, if you say even one word to Emily, I'll send photos to everyone's smartphones. Michael continued tearfully. Because I love you, I didn't want to embarrass you. But by not being able to speak, I hurt you even worse. Emily was deeply hurt. However, she also understood Michael's anguish. I need time to forgive. But I believe we can start over, she answered quietly. Both realized that there were problems that love alone couldn't solve. In the subsequent investigation, Jessica was arrested for blackmail, then fired from her company. Police investigation revealed that she had blackmailed multiple other men, using similar methods. She was severely punished as a malicious crime that exploited past romantic relationships. 3 months later, Emily and Michael decided to hold another small wedding ceremony. This time only family and close friends were invited. For a quiet ceremony, at the same St. Patrick's Church, Michael tearfully spoke his vows. Thank you for giving me a second chance. I'll cherish you for life. I'll never do anything to sadden you again. Anna was also invited as a special guest. Without her courageous action, their married life might have ended before it began. Emily expressed her heartfelt gratitude. If you hadn't told us the truth, we would have remained misunderstood forever. Anna was living fulfilling days at her new company, then blessed their happiness from her heart. A year later, Emily announced her pregnancy. Michael felt joy and at the same time, the weight of responsibility as a father. I want to teach this child the courage to face the truth, Emily said, rubbing her growing belly. And that while no one is perfect, I want to convey the importance of learning from mistakes and growing. The two took each other's hands and began walking toward a new future. The wedding incident had been a trial for them, but at the same time it became a valuable experience for building a true bond. Now, knowing the pain of losing trust, and the difficulty of regaining it. Their love had become deeper and stronger. "I love to thank you for joining me." Michael never forgot his daily gratitude to Emily. He was saved by the tolerance and strength she had shown him. Emily also discovered her own strength. By overcoming the difficulty, they truly understood from their hearts that a real family is one that overcomes mistakes and is bound by even stronger bonds.